My name is Luther E. Johnson. I have been asked to come and present to you today about the first Rhode Islanders and about the roles that African Americans played in the Revolutionary War. I am the founder of an organization called History on Wheels, or we call it HOW, H-O-W, question mark. A nonprofit organization based out of Joliet, Illinois. I'm also the president of the African Descendants Military Historical Museum, also located in Joliet. It's being built as we speak. It'll be open June of 2025. So you can check us out on www.historyonwheels.org. So it's a museum dedicated to the roles that African Americans played while serving. We're going to start in the Revolutionary War and end in the modern day war. A little bit about me. I was born and raised on the west side of Chicago. I went to Steinmetz High School. Anybody ever heard of Steinmetz High School? Okay. I went to Steinmetz High School. I also attended North Central College right here in Naperville. And I also attended the University of St. Francis in Joliet. I earned a bachelor's degree in business. I earned an MBA in logistics. And I earned a whole bunch of debt. I'm married. My lovely wife is sitting in the audience right there. I'm a father of 3 and a daddy's 8. So I was married twice. So we'll talk about that other day. I fell in love with history at an early age, and it was mainly due because my mother. My mother purchased me these Time Life books, and they talked about the Civil War and World War I, and I just started reading these books, and I fell in love with history, and it changed my life. So I've been doing Civil War and World War I reenacting for about 18 years. I've also do other historical, as you see, roles to help out with when I'm called upon. I've been featured in several movies, documentaries, and publications. So enough about me. I'm glad to be here to speak to you today about the first Rhode Islanders. It's also known as the Black Regiment. All right. I hope you leave here today learning something that you did not know before you came in. And I'm going to tell you those 3 things I want you to know. That way I know you learned them, right? Set you up for that one. One thing I want you to leave out of here if you don't remember anything I said, is to remember that African Americans at that time, they were called black soldiers, but African Americans or people of African descent is the proper way to say it, have fought in every engagement that America has had. 2, it's important to not let history die and become a fabled story. That is important. If you don't remember anything I said, remember that. And 3, it is the responsibility of everyone in this room to champion the cause of history for yourself and for your family. It's a responsibility that you share and document the stories of your family, especially of those who have served, have done great things, so that our future generations can learn from our past mistakes and build upon our past successes. Those are the main 3 things I want you to remember if you don't remember all the dates and times and battles and tactics that we're going to discuss. Oh, David said I had about, 3 hours, right?
He's a riot.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, okay. I thought I had about 3 hours. Finally, this is the when in grammar school they lay the rules of the land, how to conduct the class. Finally, this is where I put my disclaimer out there. Giving people are very sensitive with historical facts. This is the time I'm giving you guys who are very sensitive. This time you might want to leave, because I tell the truth and nothing but the truth. And some of the facts are sensitive to others, and some folks don't like to hear certain things stated. So this is the time you can say, man, I'm out of here. Okay, no one got up, I can keep talking. All right, because I don't want to bore you with a bunch of dates and times and stories of battles, because you can read that stuff and you'll get lost in translation, because I've done it for 18 years and I still don't know what they're talking about when they're talking about some of the battles that took around. I appreciate what I also want is the lay of the land is this. I want you to leave here with the appreciation and the honor and respect of the brave black men and women and those who fought for this land called America. Fair enough? Cool. Let us begin. I'm going to start this presentation probably different than what you heard most. Most folks go into reading all these dates and times, statistics. I'm going to start taking us back to school a little bit. I'm going to start with some definitions. All right, the first definition I'm going to talk about, and I'm doing this for a reason because I'm telling you the end of the presentation at the beginning, and you'll understand why as I go through. The first definition is liberty. Liberty means freedom from arbitrary and unreasonable restraints upon an individual. It also means the power to do as one please, and it means freedom from physical restraint. Remember that. The second definition I'm going to talk about is freedom. Freedom means the power or the right to act, speak, or think as one wants, without hindrance or restraints. I'm going to say that again. The power to act, speak, or think as one wants, without hesitation or restraint. That's freedom. And the last one is justice. It means the equality of being fair, impartial, or just. Some synonyms of justice is righteousness, goodness, equality, fairness, virtue, a fair shake, or integrity. These definitions embody what the first Rhode Islanders and many people of color held on to, that caused them, that it erupted them to want to fight. The name of this presentation is called the Black Regiment, and I called it the Black Regiment, Justice, Freedom, and Liberty. Now, I'm going to quote some of our founding fathers, and I want you to pay attention to some of the verbiage. And the reason I'm going to quote some of the founding fathers is because it's going to build the case when I began to talk about the first Rhode Islanders. It's going to build the case, and hopefully you'll understand better how they felt. The first one, I'm not going to even have to tell you his name. You're going to jump out and say, yay! You're going to know who he was. And it's a little lengthy. I'm going to read fast, so if I stumble over my words, forgive me. So here it goes. It says, when in course of human event, it becomes necessary for one person to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with one another, and it assumes among the power of earth the separation and the equal stations to which the laws of nature and the laws of God entitle them to. Decent respect to an opinion of mankind required that they should declare this cause, which impels them to separation. You guys know the rest. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. They are endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights. Among these rights, life, liberty, I gave y'all that, and the pursuit of happiness. That was written by one of our founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson. Beautiful speech. Very well articulated. Words that I could not say. But Mr. Jefferson owned 600 women, children, slaves. The next one I'm going to talk about. This is another great founding father who was there at the beginning of this whole thing called America. And it says this: what is it, gentlemen? What would you have? Is life so dear or peace so sweet as to purchase at the price of chains or slavery? Forbid it, God Almighty. I know not what course you take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death. You all know who said that. Patrick Henry. By the way, Patrick Henry enslaved 137 men, women, and children. And you may say, what the words got to do with the first Rhode Islanders? Wait on it. 12 of our sitting presidents at some point owned slaves. 8 while they were in office. Our own first commander-in-chief, General George Washington himself, owned slaves. About 307 men, women, and children. So, what fueled black people And I'm going to use the term black people and not African American because at that time you have to understand we were 13 colonies. We have not established what America was. We were still trying to figure this thing out. One thing they figured out pretty well though was slave trade. But we were still trying to figure out where we fit and how we fit and what's going on. They did know that they did not like the British to tax them. They did know they did not want to be held accountable to pay extra money, and they wanted to be free, like the ones they enslaved. So what fueled them? What fueled black men and women and Indians and indigenous people? That's a whole nother history lesson within itself. But what fueled them to want to fight? These three words, and I gave you the definitions of them: freedom, justice, and liberty. You guys may not know who this one, but this is one of my favorite quotes. Those who will be free themselves must strike the blow. Better even die free than live as a slave. That was Frederick Douglass who said that. He said that because he understood what was at hand. He said that because he knew that one day, if black men decided to stand up and fight, that it will help the future of those that were to come. Approximately 5,000 black soldiers and sailors contributed to the fight for America's independence. Approximately 20,000 enslaved soldiers went to go fight for the British against the colonies. Go tell. So, you may say, well, Mr. Jones, I came to hear about the first Rhode Island. You're telling me all this history lesson. I get it. But it's important we understand the hypocrisy that was presented to the slaves when they gave them this. In 1778, there was a thing called the Slave Enlistment Act. That act said, it stipulated that any enslaved person accepted in the 1st Rhode Island Regiment be immediately discharged from the service of his master or mistress and be absolutely free. Now, we all know how that story went. Were they absolutely free at the end of the Revolutionary War? Some were, some were not. But that was a slave act. That prompted the men that were enslaved and also women to say, hey, I'd rather fight and get up every morning. I'd rather go in and fight it versus be a slave. It's a better deal. It was a better deal. Fearing the loss of the war and Britain recruiting more African men, women, and Indian than the colonists were, General George Washington allowed the enslaved people to fight, thus turning the battle of the war and turning the tides. This is how the unit that I'm portraying right now, this cool uniform, I don't like walking around with hats, with feathers in my hat, but it's pretty looking cool. This is the uniform I'm portraying, was the uniform of the 1st Rhode Islanders. These brothers decided that, you know what, given the opportunity, if you let me fight, I'll fight. Because it was a chance for them to prove that they were just as citizens, they were just as good as the counterparts and had just right to this land as anybody else. So, the 1st Rhode Islanders, the Black Regiment, was widely recognized as the Americans' first Black Regiment. The 1st Rhode Islanders was the first Black battalion in the U.S. And the only Continental Regiment of black officers and soldiers that served and fought the entire 7 years of the Revolutionary War. This regiment was made up of black and indigenous men, many of whom were recently freed slaves. They still fought, and they were free. The regiment was one of the few Continental Army to serve in all 7 years, like I said. The 1st Rhode Island Regiment fought in many battles during the Revolution. Now, I don't want to give you a bunch of dates, but I'm going to shoot off some of these battles because I do have some history buffs. Do I have any history buffs in the house? Okay, I got one or two. Got some history buffs. May 1775, that was the Boston Siege. Bunker Hill, June 1775. Long Island, August 22nd, 1776. Harlem Heights, September the 16th, 1776. The Battle of White Pines, October 28, 1776. The Battle of Trenton, which is a lot talked about, July 2nd, 1777. The Battle of Princeton, July 3rd, 1777. The Battle of Rhode Island, 1778. The Battle of Yorkville, 1781. Were few of the places that this unit fought on behalf of freedom. Black Patriots did more, though, than simply fill the military ranks. They displayed enormous courage when it came to the Revolutionary War. Often they served as an intricate part alongside of white soldiers, facing similar hardships. The life of a Revolutionary War on the colonial side was not that great. The colonists decided we're going to fight the greatest war, the greatest army in the world at that time, which were the British. The colonists was more like a ragtag, put together army at that time. They decided we're fighting because we don't like what is dished to us. We want that, as Patrick Henry said, give me liberty or give me death. We want, as Thomas Jefferson said, we were all created with certain unalienable rights. I wish I could have been a fly on the wall when they wrote that, because what they wrote was beautiful, but they left one little small. Did it apply to everybody?
No.
Was it true for everyone? That's the question that's always loomed. Did they really pen it down, excluding in their mind black people, or was it something they thought we'll get around to? Those are just questions. This is not part of my speech. My mind just went there. Forget that. So they usually were limited to lower ranks, and they played a supporting role, like cooks, and they cooked the hulls of trains, they made parapets and things of that nature. The first Rhode Islanders, which were they're often featured in this unit, has been wrote about by many people. So the information about their timeline, where they did, where they fought, is plenty. Unlike a lot of other units, you really can't find a lot of information. I'm going to stop here because I digress. I'm going to tell you a little bit about, so this hat that I wear for the Rhode Island is called a wave cap. As I stated earlier, it is stated that when they walked in a column, it looked like a tidal wave. So they called it the wave cap. I've done the research. We can't find out why the feathers. I just think it looks cool. I don't know. Is one of my feathers off there? Okay, cool. So, it's called the wave cap. Like most, they wore a frock coat. This is called a hunter's frock. But what made them distinct was the red collars that their uniform had, and they wore pretty much the same, what they call coveralls that all the other soldiers wore, the same type of vest. Now, I always thought that during the Revolutionary War, they were well dressed. They had full vest on, and they were some sharp dudes. There was accounts that other soldiers wrote that that's the sharpest unit we've seen. When they walk, them brothers look sharp. But wait a minute, these are slaves. How is it possible that they know how to march and drill and fire a weapon? We'll get to that weapon thing. Throughout U.S. history, black soldiers have fought on behalf of this nation. The enslaved of this nation that were enslaved, terrorized, and discriminated against before the emancipation. Many fought for a chance to earn the potential right of simple freedom. Later, many fought to show their sacrifice and dedication as first-class citizens with equal rights. Although we called upon African Americans time and time again to help in the struggle to keep America free, it took 170 years for President Harry Truman in 1948 to finally end the desegregation of the military. Think about it, 1948. That's in our age bracket. To finally say that black and white can even serve together. Terrible. African descendants and people of color have always answered the call. Have always answered the call for freedom to defend this country. But the call for freedom for them has always been a collect call. Will you all accept it? It came when people of color wanted to do their best and show they earned the right of citizenship. In closing, this letter that I'm about to read, to me, signifies and it brings home the message of what the first Rhode Islanders did with all the black men, women, children, Indians, and what they call people of color, mulattoes, of people who served. This president wrote a letter that we can take from the time he wrote it and put it at the beginning of the revolution, and it still has relevance. And when I start reading it, you're going to know who wrote it right away. But if you listen to the words, he coined it better than any other president that I've read about. And this is the closing. 7 years ago, our forefathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty. We talked about that. And dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now, where did he get that from? Now, we are engaged in this great civil war, testing whether the nation or any other nation so conceived and so dedicated can endure. It is whether us here dedicate the great task remaining before us. One of those great tasks remaining before them was ending slavery. That was one of those great tasks. Remaining before us, that we honor the dead, we take increased devotion to that cause, for which they have given the last full measure of devotion. That we highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain. That is every soldier who have died on any battlefield. Black, white, Jew, Gentile, Protestant, or Catholic. That applies to everybody who served and put themselves in harm's way. That this nation shall have a new birth of freedom. I define what freedom was. And that the government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from this earth. Abraham Lincoln wrote that. By the way, he didn't own any slaves. Thank you for your time. That was my small speech about what this unit was, about how I felt for freedom that African Americans served. And now I think we can open it up for questions.